Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1997 Mercedes C280. Up front is a 2.8 liter inline 6, and down below is a 5-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving the C280 for a couple of reasons. First of all, this car is incredibly clean, a very well kept example, and I'm always a sucker for driving older cars that have been held in such good condition. But the second reason is that I haven't driven a C-Class of this vintage quite yet, and this was a very pivotal year for the Mercedes and especially the C-Class, so we'll be digging into that today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you, and you would get a video of your vehicle, just like the one you're watching now of this C280. But let's get back to that 2.8 liter straight 6 under the hood. Well, not only is that where the car gets its name, the 280 comes from the 2.8, but this was the final year for this engine. It's a dual overhead cam straight 6, making about 190 horsepower, but in 1998, they switched over to the 2.8 liter V6 that now went back to single overhead cam and made 4 more horsepower. And it was a little bit more reliable, a little bit more efficient, and that's what Mercedes was looking for. But that means that this vehicle was the final Mercedes here in the United States that got a gasoline inline 6. We got the diesel inline 6s for a little bit longer, but for a gasoline inline 6, this is the last one. And so that's part of the reason why this car was such a departure from traditional Mercedes at the time. It's a really smooth engine. If you really get on it, you can hear those inline 6 exhaust notes, but it's very subtle. Like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed automatic, also brand new. So for 1997 was the first year that they did the 5-speed. All previous ones had 4 speeds, and so this is really a 1-year only car to have the inline 6 and the 5-speed. They only did it for 97 because they switched to the V6 in 98, and they had the 4-speed up to 96. Fun little trivia for you there. Last but not least, of course, the C280 is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to drive the C280? Well, it's a very relaxed and comfortable experience. It's not on the edge of your seat like the 190E was or other vehicles of that vintage. This is a more floaty, more business-oriented sedan. Now, if you were upper management, you were probably buying an E-Class and not the C-Class, but if you were doing decently well, you wanted to get yourself a nice little vehicle, maybe you just made store manager, maybe you got a Christmas bonus in 1997, something of the sort, well, you could afford this, and that's the sort of experience that you got. It's very nice, plush, it's comfortable, it's quiet, there's not a whole lot of road noise in here, and that is exquisite. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my coolant temperature and fuel. In the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my tachometer. The steering wheel doesn't have any forward-facing buttons, however, it does have a horn. I always love testing out the horns. And I do have cruise control behind that. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, headlight switches, along with fog light switch, parking brake release, and then the steering wheel adjustment switch. So when you pull this down, you can raise and lower the steering wheel. That's pretty standard practice these days. But there's a little light that comes on the dash that says, hey, your steering wheel's unlocked, so be careful. I like that little touch. On the door, we just have our latch get in and out and our power seat options. And moving into the center, we get 2 more climate control vents and an island of misfit buttons. So we have heated seats for both the driver and passenger, the ASR off, our headrest release, hazard switch, and central locking. Then we have the climate controls. We do have auto climate, which is very nice, and where to send it. But then there's this little button that says rest. So this car is equipped with an electronic water pump. And so when you hit this rest button, it will actually still circulate coolant and use the blower motor for, I believe it's 30 minutes after you park the vehicle. So if you know you're going to be gone for 30 minutes, you can hit this button and it will still circulate the heat in the vehicle. So when you come back, your car is still toasty. That is a very, very cool feature here in 1997. Then we have the radio, cassette player, and it does have a 6-disc CD changer in the trunk. Some Seek tune, things like that. Love seeing original radios in these vehicles. As well as we have another readout down below. Of course, ashtray and cigarette lighter. A little cubby, and then we move into the center. We have the shifter bright in center. I like the look and feel of it, very Mercedes of this era, to be expected for sure. And we do have the weather and sport mode, or wet and sport, wet and sunny, whatever you want to call this W and S mode. S is going to be sporty, W is going to be more cautious. It's going to start you off in second gear in case it's slippery, that sort of thing. But the actual words behind it are debated. You can freely debate that in the comments. We also have our window switches down here, trunk release, and our power mirror adjustments. All wonderful features. And we do have this openable cubby. Now, I'm not totally sure if this was meant to be a cup holder or not, but either way, it doesn't fit the big friggin' bottle. And so, at the end of the day, it is, in fact, a fail. Moving up to the center console, if you open up the top part, you get a car phone. Very typical of Mercedes in this era. I absolutely love seeing this awesome piece of history. And of course, I love playing with it. But then if you pull the bigger button, you can open up the larger center console, which of course offers more storage. The seats are power heated and decently comfortable. I like this nice leather that they were using back in the 90s. It holds up really, really well. And I'm a big fan of it. This whole time I've been driving this car, I've been very comfortable. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the C280 from 1997, and right off the bat, my knees are kind of touching the seat in front of me. My head is touching the headliner, although it is sagging after so many years, which is okay. The C-Class was quite literally a compact. That's what the C stood for. At least that's what I've been told. And so this is the smaller chassis that Mercedes offered at the time. They then later introduced the A-Class, which is just abysmally tiny, which I would love to film one if anyone has one. But this was small of the small. I do have an ashtray down below. Thank God for that, I guess. Pull out center armrest, no cup holders or anything like that. Overall, very clean back seat, very simple back seat, and I like it a lot, just not very big. However, hopefully the trunk is bigger than the back seat, so let's hop into the back and do a trunk review. All right, around the back of the C280, should probably get the key out of my pocket. That would probably be helpful. There we go, flying up with some serious speed there. And the trunk is a pretty good size. 90s cars are pretty good about the sizing of their trunks, so nothing really too new here. However, definitely very nice to see. We'll talk about this really nice slim bumper as well in a second, but overall, exactly what I expected out of the C280, which is very good. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I don't think this is like a stone cold killer when it comes to the looks, but I do think it's a very handsome automobile, and it's really impressive how small the rear bumper is. I really like the rear end of this car. It's just so simple and clean. It's uncluttered, and I really, really like that. However, around the vehicle, you might see these little green lights or dots. This is for the keyless entry, which it actually works off of lights like a TV remote. So this is how you know if your vehicle is locked or unlocked. Very, very cool little piece of 90s tech. However, with all of this being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a Mercedes C280 from 1997? Well, I have to say it's been a very pleasurable experience. It's comfortable, it's nice riding, I don't have to scream at the top of my lungs to get a point across, and it's impressive how well this car has held up over the years. Sure, there has been a head gasket replaced, and the transmission did need some work because it was the first year of the 5-speed and it wasn't overly reliable at that time. But just the materials on the inside, all of the features still work. Even the headlight wipers still work. It's all a beautiful thing. There was a lot of quality put into this vehicle, and I appreciate that. However, like I said, this is a departure from Mercedes of the 80s and 90s. I've been fortunate enough to drive a handful of Mercedes from this era, and I've always loved the inline sixes. I've loved the materials. They drive really well. But in the 2000s, I like them a lot less. And you could see that change start with this vehicle, the very last year of the gas inline six. The start of the 5-speed automatic, and just the design of the car. You can tell that this was an early 90s design. It's still somewhat boxy and hasn't fully adopted the blobbiness that came with the 2000s. I mean, take a look at this C-Class that I drove. It's very rounded, and I think this looks good too, but it looks visually different where this car, you can tell that it was an evolution of what they had in the 80s. They took their vehicles from the 80s and just smoothed the edges a little bit. They didn't start from scratch. So moving into the 2000s, it was a night and day difference. Now, was 2000s Mercedes better than 90s Mercedes? I'll leave it up to you. Their engines got more reliable. At least their V6s, whether that be the 2.8 or the 3.5 liter, they're pretty good. Or even the 3.2. The 3.2s I actually quite liked. But this just had a certain style to it. It had a certain, I don't know, I want to say enunciation, but I don't think that's the right word. Gravitas to it. This is a Mercedes. This feels like it was still chiseled out of a granite block and not assembled in a factory. And that's what I love about old Mercedes. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Zack, spelled the correct way, for letting me take out his C280. Zack has been absolutely wonderful to work with. I filmed 2 of his cars years and years and years ago. This might have been like 2017 or 2018. So he's been a supporter of the channel for a very long time. I appreciate his support over the years, and I appreciate the fact that he picked up such a clean C280. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.